Today's sermon is entitled Seeking Approval. Seeking Approval. We're going to talk about how often people want approval from the world, from social media, from their friends, from their parents. I feel like parents play a big role in that, in seeking the approval. I just want parents to be proud of me. I just want them to think well of me. We think that with our friend group. Man, I just really want my friends to think that I have it together, or to think that I'm special, or to think that I'm an athlete, or to think that I'm artistic, or to think that I'm good at speaking or eloquent. I just want to be thought well of. And so we're going to talk today about whose approval we should be seeking and the mirage that it can sometimes be. How we can feel like we're obtaining it, and yet it slips through our fingers. So let's read about this. Galatians chapter 1. This might seem a little bit out of left field, but I hope to explain it to you after I read it. Galatians chapter 1. Let's start here in verse 6. Paul is writing to the church, and he says this: I am shocked that you are turning away so soon from God, who have called you to himself through the loving mercy of Christ. You are following a different way that pretends to be the good news, but it is not the good news at all. You are being fooled by those who deliberately twist the truth concerning Christ. Let God's curse fall on anyone, including us, or even an angel from heaven who preaches a different kind of good news than the one I preached. I say again what we have said before. If anyone preaches any good news, or any other good news than the one that I gave you, let that person be cursed. Now, pause here for a moment. This doesn't seem like a very Mother's Day-like message to be like, hey, if any of you false teachers are manipulating the scriptures, may they be cursed by God. Be them an angel or be them a human, may they be cast down and cursed by God for all of eternity. Whoa, chill, Paul. Why is Paul so fired up? Paul's fired up because he starts this church, and when he leaves the Galatians with this church, false teachers come in and they're like, hey, to actually be a good Christian, you've got to do this stuff. If you don't do certain good works, then you are not saved. Or you don't follow this legalistic outline, then you're not saved. Or if you're a Gentile and you don't follow Jewish ways, you are not saved. They're basically adding on to the gospel. The gospel is anyone who puts their faith in Jesus Christ and his work for their own salvation and repents of their sins can be saved through faith in Jesus and repentance of sin. Jesus died in their place on the cross, in our place on the cross. And anyone who believes in him will not perish but inherit eternal life. That's the gospel, but people were coming in and lying. So Paul gets angry, and Paul expresses that anger. It's interesting, this is for another sermon another time. But he literally says here, hey, even if an angel shows up, and it's beautiful, and it's shining, and it's miraculous, and it's mysterious, and it tells you a lie that doesn't go with the gospel, then you should reject it, and may they be cursed by God. If in the future one day, a being appears, or you see something supernatural, and someone says to you, hey, you've been told a lie about Christianity, it's not true, here are the true gods, or here is the truth, then we have been warned about this. So please be on guard against that if that ever happens in the future. And that includes fairy godmothers. Fairy godmothers are basically witches in disguise, okay? I don't know why you're laughing at that. That's very serious stuff, okay? If you ever have somebody bibbidi-bobbidi-boo like show up and change a pumpkin, be like, you put that pumpkin right back where you found it, okay? You please stop abusing these animals, okay? You keep your glass slippers. I don't need anything from you, fairy godmother. I have a God in heaven. I don't need you, witch. You know, like, I don't know. Like, I'm just saying, like, call her out, okay? She's doing sorcery, and you don't want nothing to do with that. Sorry, that was a random rant. I didn't anticipate ranting about Disney today, but there we go. All right, moving on. Back to the story here. So Paul's angry. Paul's like, look. And then he gets to this verse here, verse 10. Let's read it. He says, obviously, I'm not trying to win the approval of people, but of God. If pleasing people were my goal, I would not be Christ's servant. Wow. Let me read that again. Paul knows that everything that I read earlier is going to make some people angry. That's kind of offensive, Paul. You might hurt some people's feelings. That Paul's just a little meanie pants. That Paul, it's just so devoted to that Bible thing. He knows that some people are going to get all offended or bothered or say mean things about him. And so what does he do? He calls them out. He goes, obviously, some of you jabronis are going to be offended by this, okay? I don't care. I'm not trying to impress you. I don't care what you think of me. I'm not trying to have you approve of the way that I live or the way that I speak or act. What does he say next? But I am seeking to win the approval of God. Paul is saying, I live, I speak, I act for God, not for you people. And what you think of me doesn't really concern me as much as what God thinks of me. Do you have that kind of confidence in yourself, in your life, to say, my goal in life is not to please or impress people. I wish to serve and impress my Father in heaven above all else. That's what I wish to accomplish. I remember when I was a kid, I went to my dad for advice. There was a playground, and the recess would let out. It'd be like kindergarten, first grade, second grade, third grade, and then the fifth graders would come out. And so literally like every 5 minutes, they'd release the next grade, and we'd all, for some time, be on the playground at the same time. Well, I was in like second grade, and I went to a small Christian school, and we'd be on the playground playing. And then when the fourth graders showed up, all the second graders scattered off the playground because there was this really mean fourth grader. I don't even remember his name. I wish I did. But this really mean fourth grader was there. And he'd show up and be like, all right, all you little babies or whatever he'd call us, get off the playground. So we'd all scram and hide. And then literally the fourth and fifth graders would just run the playground, which is funny because they didn't even play with it that much. But anyway, they'd kick us off. And I told my dad, I was kind of bummed about this. And my dad looked at me and said, son, you look at me. You know when you're about to get a dad talk, you know what I mean? Like you're just like, oh, here we go. All right, dad's about to dad thinks that he's like a motivational speaker or something, but his voice is squeaking in between. But anyway, my dad pulls me aside and goes, son, you listen to me. He gets his Mufasa going here. He said, listen, no one is going to bully you. You look at that fourth grader and you say, we have the right in America. Yeah, he said America. I'm not joking. In America, to play where we want to play. And you will not tell me how to live my life, okay? Me and my friends, we can play in harmony with one another. The second graders, the fourth graders, all people of all nations, united under this beautiful banner of freedom in America will play on this playground. And I got inspired. I'm like, I'm going to do it, Dad, okay? You convinced me. I'm going to do it. So the next day I go to school, I'm pumped up. Okay, I got some Red Bull, I'm chugging that. I'm like ready for recess. Recess happens, we go to the playground. Anyway, the bell rings for the fourth graders and my buddies start scrambling off the playground. And one of my guys, Ethan, turns around and goes, hey, Barrett, come on, the fourth graders are coming. And I go, no, we take a stand today. And he goes, cool, bye. And he leaves me. Ethan's not sticking around, he just leaves me. I thought I had a bro, I did not have a bro, okay? Anyway, so I'm sitting there and the fourth graders stream across. It's like that scene in Bug's Life where the grasshoppers are appearing, okay? And they show up, and the really mean guy shows up, and he's got a little sidekick who just is like, in the movies when there's the bully and then there's the sidekick like LeFou and Gaston, where it's like, yeah, don't you mess with us, Anyway, so he's got a sidekick, the main bad guy rolls up, and he's like, what are you guys doing here? Why are you still here? Go away. Go. Psst. And I'm like, no. And so I'm trying to remember my dad's speech. And now all my friends in second grade are now watching the playground. They want to see what's going to happen. I'm like, this is my moment. And so I, try to do the speech that my dad gave. Except I was obviously terrified and it didn't come out as cool. It came out more like this. Hey, in America, there's freedom and there's people. I like playgrounds and, the people, we should just play on the freedom in America and flags are waving and, what if we just were friends and we all just hugged each other and maybe we just didn't have bullies and then I thought that we could be friends. America.
That was my speech, okay? That's how it came out. Yeah, I know, I'm so cool. It didn't come out quite as cool. And the guy, for a moment, thank you. For a moment, I thought I had him. Because he walks over, he like looks at me, walks over, puts his hand on my shoulder. And I'm like, what's going on? He goes, you know what? I really respect you. That took a lot of courage. I'm not joking. That's what he said to me. I'm like, oh my goodness. And he goes, but you're really small and pathetic and I don't care. He punches me in the face. I fall to the ground, of course crying because I'm pathetic. He slides me, it's like a movie where he grabs me like by my clothes and pushes me down the slide and I fall into that mulch. You know that mulch that just gets everywhere? Fall into the mulch and I stand up in tears and the mulch all over me and my second graders are like, all right, cool. And they just leave, okay? And so I go home in shame. So of course, the car pulls up. My dad looks at me like, how'd it go? And I start crying. And I'm like, Dad, I stood up to him and he beat me up and he threw me down the slide and I got a bruise on my face. And my dad looked at me after my whole class had shamed me. All the fourth graders thought I was a loser. My dad looked at me and said, hey, that is exactly what I wanted you to do. And I said, you give horrible advice. I got beat up and embarrassed. And he goes, no, but you stood up for yourself. And I'm proud of you. He took me to McDonald's, got me a milkshake, and I didn't have to share it with my brothers, which was a big deal. And I felt like, all right, my dad's proud of me. And to be honest, I would have appreciated skipping getting beat up. But here's the deal. My father being proud of me, truly in that moment, meant more to me than all my classmates, than what the fourth graders thought. I did right in his eyes. And he was trying to teach me something. And I remember thinking like, wow, like if my dad's proud of me, that's all I need. Paul lived that way. He's like, you guys can think whatever you want of me. But if God is with me, if he is proud of me, if he approves of the activity and the way that I live my life, what are you humans to God? What are you, man, to look down on me in judgment as if we are not equal? You see, man cannot judge us and will not judge us because man is not in a position of authority. Let me say that again. Another human cannot look to you and judge your eternal destiny one day. God will do that. Why? He is in a place above humanity. Therefore, he is able to give judgment, and he will judge the world. You will not get to heaven, and a panel of 10,000 people, humans that lived and walked the earth, will sit together and go, all right, let's see how good you were. They will be standing in judgment next to you. You will get to heaven, and God himself will look to you, and he will judge you. So Paul says, why would I care what the humans think? I care what God thinks. So let's break down how we seek approval in our culture. And then let's break down the way in which biblically we should look to this. First, our culture, we seek approval from people. And this looks a lot of different ways. We think that if someone is famous, then the culture is saying this is worthy of recognition. If someone is popular, meaning, oh man, you've got a lot of likes or followers, you are worthy of recognition. There's this guy who on YouTube or TikTok goes to really rich people coming out of nice cars. And he goes, hey, I have a following of 10 million people. Can I interview you for a second? And at first, the billionaire or rich person getting onto their Ferrari like doesn't care, like, oh, whatever. And the moment he says, hey, I have 10 million followers, they go, oh, hold on. You mean if I film a video with you, 10 million people will see my face and think I'm rich and think I'm important? Okay. And suddenly these very rich, important people stop what they're doing and talk to some young guy because he's got 10 million followers. And we look at that and go, oh, wow, that's powerful. You have the ability to get eyeballs, to get attention, to have sponsors. Some people look at money and like, okay, you have the approval of the world if you're rich or you're famous or people think well of you. There are certain celebrities that it's like everyone loves them. It's like, oh, everyone loves them, at least for a time. You know, it doesn't matter how famous you get or how big you get. You're one scandal away, one YouTube video away, one mistake away from all those same people that were your fans suddenly canceling you, abandoning you, and hating you. Isn't it amazing that the things that we value so much can be gone like that? The people that are famous. You ever had that moment with your parents where your parents say a name of some celebrity and you go, "Who's that?" And they go, "What? You don't know this famous person? Oh my goodness, how do you not know them?" And I like to go, "What? You're so old? You don't know the young people that I know, okay? Like, you don't know even what YouTube is, and you're judging me for not knowing some radio star from like 50 years ago? Okay, like, sorry, your person isn't famous anymore. They're not a big deal anymore. They were famous to you when you were younger, but they're not famous anymore." And Pastor Gary gives me a hard time because Pastor Gary's, well, I got to be careful because this is being recorded. Hi, Gary, if you're watching this. You're great. Love you. Anyway, also, if you're watching this, you should skip everything before. But anyway, Pastor Gary's like, "You don't know who this musician is?" And I'm like, "No, I don't know who Diana Ross is." And he's like, "How can you not know?" By the way, how many of you have heard of Diana Ross? Raise your hand. I'm actually surprised any of you. Okay. He was just shocked, like, "How do you not know who this is?" And I'm like, "Yeah, but you don't know, like, a lot of things about today. Like, you don't know who Mr. Beast is." "Mr. who?" Like, he's like, no idea. Completely oblivious. And that's the thing about fame. Fame is fleeting and it slips through your fingers. I actually learned this a couple years ago. A couple years ago, I got a lesson in fame. And everybody's like, "Oh, you get your 15 minutes of fame." I got my 15 minutes of fame a couple years ago. I'll tell you a brief story. My sister was getting her wisdom teeth removed. And my brother comes into my room and he's like, "Hey, Millicent is getting her wisdom teeth removed." And I'm like, "You couldn't have told me anything less interesting. Okay, why do I care? Okay." And he's like, "Well, she's going to have to be on the drugs from that. What if we prank her while she's still recovering from the drugs?" And I'm like, "Now you're talking, okay? Now you're talking." So we get some GoPro cameras. We get my mom in on it. We get a friend to record a radio broadcast that works for a news or a radio station. So my sister's in the car. She's got gauze in her mouth after getting her wisdom teeth taken out. And she's on some loopy drugs. And she's like, like just got a bob in her head. And she was always afraid of zombies in The Walking Dead. So we decided to convince her that a zombie apocalypse happened. So we literally plug in a radio signal that makes it sound like the real radio station, but then it blares like one of those like warnings. And then it says that a zombie outbreak has happened and you need to seek shelter. And my sister believed it. And it was so much fun. So we filmed this funny video of her being hysterical and laughing and whatever. And we record the video, we laugh about it, and we show my sister and we're like, "Hey, are you okay if we post this online?" And she goes, "You have to. It's hysterical. My sister's a good sport." So we post it online. We go to sleep, and we were shocked because the number kept rising when we posted it. It was like, "You've got like 10 views. And we're like, "Oh, cool, Grandma and Grandpa saw it." "You've got 100 views. Oh, like, cool. Or like friends, maybe some church people. "You have 10,000 views. Okay, most of Leesburg saw it." And we went to bed, and it was at 100,000 views, but it stopped turning. And we're like, we kept hitting refresh, and we're like, "That's weird." Like, it just kind of stopped. But it was kind of exciting, cool. So we all go to bed. Wake up the next morning, the video is at over 5 million views. We are trending on Twitter. We are the #1 trending video on YouTube for 3 straight days. We are getting calls. I literally open my phone, and it's just a blur of messages and notifications. I have over 5,000 people that have requested to be my Instagram friends because I have a private account. My brother pulls up his phone, and he's got reporters. He's got people from CNN, from Fox News, from every which way you can have. And my brother's like, "What just happened?" Okay, what just happened? I literally have to turn on my phone, and we have to game plan. And so my brother's like, "Look, we should get an agent." I'm like, "An agent? Yesterday we were asking what's for breakfast. Like, what do you mean? Like, what are we getting an agent for?" So we get an agent, and the agent's like, "Okay, a couple things. Okay, first, You can either be on The Tonight Show with Jimmy Fallon, Good Morning America, or Ellen. You guys get to pick, okay? They are all three asking for you, but whichever one you do, the other ones don't want you after that. Second, Ariana Grande's angry at you guys. I'm like, excuse me, what? Like, what do you mean? Well, she just released a music video, and it's #2 trending, and you're #1, and you guys, you haven't really let her get to the spot. I'm like, I don't know what to say to that. I tell her I'm sorry. And then 3, and so they're like going through all this, and so the media and the news was wild, and my friends are blowing up my phone, and it was a pretty crazy week. But then 3 weeks go by, and frankly, I was a youth pastor at the time. I didn't want to change. I love being a youth pastor. So I didn't want to take any offers. We got calls from our agent like, hey, do you guys want to be YouTube celebrities? We'll give you some funding. A media company wanted to like buy out the rights to our family YouTube before we even had one. I'm like, what are you guys talking about? And I'm like, no, I just kind of want to be left alone for a little bit. Like, I'm kind of like enjoying my life. So my brother ended up getting a job in media, and he still does media. My sister is in LA, and she does some like TV stuff here and there. But life went back to normal. And I know this because many of you are like, I didn't even know that story. Yeah, because it's fun for a moment, but it's fleeting. The internet forgets. People forget. Fame is so temporary. And it usually lasts only as long as people's attention span, which today is not very long. And Satan will convince you that fame is everything. You just want to be known. You just want to be known. And yet it sometimes can actually be empty. I want to play a video for you of somebody you guys have probably heard of. He's the greatest football player of all time. Won 7 Super Bowls. I don't even really need to say his name because I say the greatest football player of all time. You guys know. So let me play a video. Shh. Let me play a video for you. After Tom Brady won his 3rd Super Bowl, he would go on to win 7. He's a single guy at this time. This is years ago, over a decade ago. I want to play this video for you guys, and I want you guys to listen to Tom Brady talk. Let's go ahead and play both of them back to back. So listen up, guys. Shh. Or do I have to cue it, or are you going to cue it? Oh, okay. Here we go.
Really scares you? Anything that intimidates you?
The end of my playing career. Big time. Because I guess I've done this for so long, and I know what I feel like in the off season. That I'm always trying to figure out ways to have a day that's filled with things I like to do. And when I'm playing football during those 7 months out of the year, it's easy. I mean, you get up and you come in here, and not that it's easy to work, not that it's easy to show up every day and do the job, but you're focused. You know, you've got a goal. You've got something you're trying to accomplish. And when that's done, you don't have 80,000 people screaming your name. I mean, what's it going to be? I mean, I don't know. I mean, I've heard a lot about astronauts who go to the moon and come back, and they're so depressed because there's nothing they can do in their lives that ever can fulfill them the way that does.
Yeah, that's right.
But with all that money, fame, and career accomplishments, we were surprised to hear this from him.
Why do I have 3 Super Bowl rings and still think there's something greater out there for me? I mean, maybe a lot of people would say, hey, man, this is what it is. I reached my goal, my dream, my life is... Me, I think, God, it's got to be more than this.
What's the answer?
I wish I knew. I wish I knew.
Here is the greatest football player of all time. This is 2000, I think it was 5 or 7. This is years ago. He's won 3 Super Bowl rings. And later in the interview, they're like, hey, you've made this much money. You are considered, you're on People magazine as the most eligible bachelor in the world. How are you feeling? And the first thing he says, they say, like, what are you afraid of? And he goes, well, honestly, I'm afraid of it ending. I'm afraid of the end of my career. You probably saw that from the fact that he retired, unretired, retired, unretired, retired, unretired. He couldn't give it up. He said the high of 80,000 people screaming your name is hard to give up. Justin Bieber was asked, what's the hardest part about your job? And he goes, the day after a concert. Like, oh, you tired? He goes, no, I'm depressed. How can you go from the high of being on stage and 100,000 people are screaming your name to sitting in a hotel room alone? Then they asked Tom Brady, or more like he says in himself, like, hey, how do you feel about all this? He goes, honestly, I'm kind of waiting to be happy. I'm kind of waiting for my life to happen. Kind of waiting to feel purposed or fulfilled or meaningful. And it's like, what would you need? Would you need 5 Super Bowls? 7? Would you need to be considered the greatest of all time? At one point in the interview, he says, if I was just married, then I'd be happy. Well, then he got married. If you know the rest of the story, he got married to a girl named Giselle. I don't want to intrude too much into his personal life, but that marriage fell apart. And many tabloids would tell you that the reason that marriage fell apart is because he kept unretiring after she said, am I not enough for you? Why can't you just be content in our relationship and our children that we have? I think that Tom Brady is still searching and still has not found it after all of that success and all of that fame. Now, here's the problem. The world is telling you, if you can just break 10,000 subscribers on YouTube, if you can just go viral, if you can just be rich, if you can just achieve those goals, then you'll be happy, then you'll be satisfied. But not only is it empty, it is fleeting, it is gone so quickly, so quickly. And if this is your life's pursuit, you will be left empty. Jim Carrey, one of the most famous actors in the 90s, actually, you could argue the most famous guy in the 90s, said once, I wish everybody could achieve all of their wildest dreams only to realize those aren't really good dreams to begin with. He was complaining in an interview about how he can't go to a restaurant or he can't go in public without being assaulted. And it's funny because famous rich people are like, oh, it's so difficult and hard being famous and rich. And people that are not famous and rich are like, oh, it's so difficult not being rich and not being famous. And it's like, well, which one is it really? What do you really want? And Paul is over here saying, why would I care more about this than what God thinks of me? You ever seen those videos of YouTubers giving an apology they don't mean? They're doing their life, they make a mistake, and they get canceled, and suddenly everybody's angry at them and furious at them. And they're making an apology about something they really don't care about, but they just want the people to stop being angry at them. So they maybe create some tears and cry, and people maybe forgive them, maybe don't. Their day is controlled by what people think of them. We can talk about famous people all we want with this, but do you struggle with this? It's interesting to me how few middle school students, even though they might have a social media, want to post. One of the reasons that they don't post is because they're afraid of the response they might get. What if I post and it flops? Or what if I post and enough people don't like or comment, or people don't notice what I have, or maybe aren't impressed with what's going on in my day-to-day life? The other group of people maybe post too much and too often, and they're trying to say, what is the response? If I do this, then I get these likes. If I do this, then my friends will think well of me. And that's an exhausting way to live your life. To walk into youth group and wonder, is anyone going to compliment my outfit today I worked real hard on? Or my new haircut that I got? To care so desperately what people think of you. Now, to some degree, all of us, of course, will care what the people around us think. And to some degree, it isn't bad. It's okay to have peers, to have parents, and to care what they think of you. But when you begin caring about that more than what God thinks of you, we have a problem. Here's what a solution might look like. What if you asked God? What if you asked him? Here's what I mean. Jesus was in the temple, and a lot of rich people were going into the temple. And they would bring these massive, bags of money with them. And they would pour it into the offering basket. They would literally pick smaller denominations like quarters rather than dollar bills, so it would make more money when it fell into the offering basket. And as these people are parading through, Jesus and his disciples are watching. These rich, these famous, these important people go in and drop all this money in, and a beggar woman walks in. She has two what's called widow's mites, 2 pennies made of bronze. And they're about this big. You can actually buy them on Amazon. They're about this big, or eBay, like old ones. And she drops them into the offering basket. And Jesus goes, this woman, of all here today, she has given the most. And the disciples are like, you gonna tell him? I'm gonna tell him. You're gonna tell him? No, I'm gonna tell him. All right, you tell him. Okay. Hey, Jesus, I don't know if you know how math works, but they literally gave more money, okay? They gave many gold coins. She gave 2 bronze coins. Like, I'm gonna correct you. You're like the God of the universe, but you're wrong, okay? They literally try to correct him, and he's like, no, you don't get it. That is all that she had. And to this day, her name is etched in Scripture and will forever be remembered because Jesus looked at her and said, well done. That is what I was looking for. You saw the heart. You got it. You gave the best that you had. I'm proud of that. You can have 10, 100, 1 million followers, but every one of them will one day perish and die. Maybe like, oh, but what if you're someone like Frank Sinatra or Achilles or Cleopatra, someone whose name lives on forever? It won't. One day, every single name on this earth will be forgotten, for the earth itself will perish. The only thing that lasts forever is that which is in heaven, and God lives in heaven. And the Bible says that when you get to heaven, there will be some that God looks at, and he says these words to them, well done, good and faithful servant. Did you know that when you get to heaven, the Bible says you will be given a white stone, and on this stone will be written a name. It is a name that God himself will give to you. And he will speak your name for the first time, this new name. You will receive it. I want you to recognize if 10,000 people chant your name and God whispers it, his voice is louder. His praise means more. Paul got that. He's like, I don't care if I anger you guys. I don't care if people hate me. I don't care if people think I'm worthless or meaningless or all of this. I care what God thinks of me. What does my Father in heaven think of me? Does he think well of me? Is he proud of me when I walk through the door? Does he speak well of me? Stephen was a martyr in the early church, one of the first. And the last thing Stephen saw before he died of earth was a group of all of the respected leaders of his community. All of those who were either rich enough or religiously exalted enough or important enough in the community to be a part of their council. And the council determined, you have loved Jesus, you have said that he is God, therefore you will die. They dragged him outside of the city. They threw him against the wall. And the last thing he saw was every person in that town who was respected holding a rock and hurling it at his face until he died. His community was seeking to publicly shame him and leave his body to decay as a warning to others. He could not have been more shamed in that society. And yet, though he was being shamed, though he was being publicly executed, he died with satisfaction in his heart and on his face. Because the Bible tells us that as he was dying, he saw a vision of heaven, and he saw Jesus standing at the right hand of God, welcoming him into heaven. Do you think Stephen got to heaven and was like, oh man, people on earth probably think I'm pathetic. They probably think I'm just meaningless. Or I wonder what they're saying about me back home. No. No, Stephen walked into heaven's gates. And by the sacrifice and blood of Jesus, he was cleansed. And he was received as a hero. Let me tell you something. The people in high school that were popular or in middle school were popular doesn't mean they're popular now. Doesn't mean they're a big deal now. Just because you are popular now or you're not popular doesn't mean you will be that or won't be that. But let me explain this to you. You might get to heaven and be surprised who God honors and who he does not. The people that walk around like they're a big deal, or spiritually, wow, they're so important, God must love them, they're doing mighty things. God might look to their heart and be like, you know what, that's actually not the impressive feat. That's not the impressive activity. I saw their heart. And there might be in heaven, lifted up higher, people you've never heard the name of. Famous pastor G.K. Chesterton was being interviewed, and they said, you're one of the most famous Christians on the planet. Do you think there's anyone as famous as you that's a Christian? And he smiled, and he said, oh, there's many. And they said, well, who is the most famous? And he goes, well, I don't know his or her name, but when we get to heaven, God will probably exalt some Christian who has lived in isolation. No one knew their name on earth. But many of the angels and many of the demons, and most importantly, Jesus himself knows their name, and he is proud of them, and he will lift them up. You see, we should seek the approval of God. Let me tell you this. Who determines if you're a good son or daughter? Who determines if you're a good friend or a good student or a good human or a good American or a good Christian? Who gets to decide? It is not your friends. It is not your parents. It is not even your pastor. The person that looks to you and speaks over you is Jesus. He is the only one whose approval matters. Live like you believe that. Ask God, are you proud of this? Are you proud of me? And then live accordingly. All right, guys, you're dismissed. Have a great day. Service is done. If you have any questions, I'm up here.